Warning: the Mended Futures Podcast contains stories told by guests that may be sensitive to some people. Viewer and listener discretion is advised. The opinions expressed by guests do not reflect the views of the hosts and/or producers of this podcast.
Hey, Taylor.
Hey.
I feel like I could use some caffeine.
Don't we all?
Mm-hmm. And I think the listeners are going to get some caffeine, get a jolt from our next guest.
Yeah. Today we have Tommy Clark, who is the owner of a local coffee shop called Mission House Coffee. Gosh, how do you even describe Tommy? He's a spitfire in the best way. He's joyful. He's passionate.
Thoughtful, intentional. And we are seeing a trend that people are ministering to communities through many different avenues. So this is the second example of coffee as the hook, or coffee as the way, the draw to the community. We've heard other leaders talk about basketball or adventure-based mentoring or a number of things. And I think it is really neat to talk to folks about what we know about them on the surface. And it is always so much deeper.
Yep. So we hope you enjoyed as much as we did.
Hey, Taylor.
Hey.
I think it's pretty appropriate on this blustery winter day that you're holding a cup of what I presume is coffee.
Cup of joe.
Ooh,
Regular
okay.
cup of joe.
Yeah.
Just kidding. It's a latte.
Okay. Why is it called Joe? I don't think we have time for that.
Well, maybe our guests can answer that for us.
Maybe our guests will know.
Your guest is a lot less knowledgeable than you may think.
So, who are you, guest, and why would it be appropriate for Taylor and yourself to be holding a cup of coffee?
That's a great question. So my name is Tommy Clark, and one of the things that I do is I'm the owner of Mission House Coffee. And so it does seem appropriate that we would both have coffee today.
Right.
2 out of the 3 of us got the message on this is the coffee episode.
I'm already well caffeinated.
And Allison, that doesn't matter.
No.
Okay.
And you know that.
Okay. I used to caffeinate to where I could hear colors, and now I'm trying to dial it back a little bit because I have to sit. in
this
seat.
room.
We
right
lock
here.
her in this room for 6 hours.
Yep, that's right.
If Liam would get me a different microphone, then I could caffeinate even more.
We can probably arrange a lapel that you can walk around.
Yes.
And
We
just
should just do like a man on the street thing with her. Where she just goes around, she's like, hi.
And I've reached the age and the level of motherhood that coffee is not as social anymore. It's medicinal.
Right.
So
it's therapeutic.
Yes, it happens early in the mornings.
Well,
oftentimes at Mission House.
Well, see, I have my 2-year-old who loves to make me coffee. And I don't know if that's because she likes the process of, let's make coffee, Daddy.
Right.
Or if it's, Daddy, I don't want to deal with you uncaffeinated.
Right.
Please drink this coffee. I will make it if you need.
Daddy can form sentences after he has the coffee.
I do not. Yeah.
How does a 2-year-old make coffee?
Not well. Let's start with
OSHA,
that.
are you listening?
Yeah, shh. OSHA, just shh. Shh. That's the
we do cold brew.
Right. Yeah, something unneeded for no. So I have at home. People assume that I have this elaborate, system because I have the coffee. No,
that's what I'm telling people.
Do you know how much money I have spent in coffee? I do not have anything left to spend money at home for more coffee.
On coffee,
right?
Yeah.
So I have 3 things. I have a pour over, which is a V60. It's a plastic thing, super
fancy.
Seems fancy, but it's really easy. I have a French press that somebody abandoned at our store one time, so free. And then I have a Keurig because sometimes you just need it quick.
I did not think that Tommy Clark from the Mission Houses was going to be talking about K-Cup pods.
So I won't talk about K-Cup pods because that is trademark.
okay.
patent pending trademark, whatever they do.
Yes.
But we do have K-style pods.
Oh, okay.
So Mission House, as a coffee, we also are roasters.
And you distribute?
Yes, we have our own K-style cups, K-pods, compatible with Keurig machines.
Know that.
So it is still my coffee. It's just a quicker and convenient way to do it.
That might be one of the cooler things I've heard on this podcast.
Okay, we're done. Everybody go get.
We're good, right?
Yeah, everybody go get your coffee.
That's
He
right.
puts stuff in a Keurig. He's like, I made this.
I made that.
I still, that was still me.
Yeah.
And it's just, that system is not the best for brewing coffee, just the manner in which it brews, right? It's great for convenience, not the best for taste. So we don't have many options in it, just because it's hard to get a really good cup of coffee out of that with the quality level that we like. So, but we do offer it, and it's something like if you go downtown, there's a hotel down there that actually they put our coffee pods in all of their hotel rooms.
So cool.
For the coffee connoisseurs.
That's right.
And I drink enough coffee to know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Some espresso taste nutty or chocolatey.
Yeah.
Others does not.
Right.
So it's a real thing.
It matters. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Is there a version of coffee sommelier?
Yes.
Yes.
So there's,
Do you have your PhD in coffee?
I have no.
You tried.
Remember when I said I'm not the most intelligent? Like, yeah, school was never my real thing.
Okay.
I just like working. If you tell me to read a book, I guarantee I won't read it. But if I'm interested in the subject,
that is rude.
I will. Well,
how about audio?
I'm even less on audio. I can't focus. Like I need to be able to read and then realize that I have not read and then go back and do it again.
Okay.
But if it's audio, like I'm not going to press that back button because it's going to go to a random spot. And I don't.
So you're a kinesthetic learner. You want to get up and you want to do it.
Learner. I would
memory.
So much rather just get involved. But like if I'm interested in something, I will deep dive. Like I want to know everything about it. So coffee became that for me, where it was. I didn't know anything. I thought I knew when I started because I had worked at a Starbucks provider. So it wasn't a Starbucks itself, but it served Starbucks coffee.
Yeah. And you'd probably stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, so you thought you knew.
Yeah, exactly. So I knew exactly what I was doing. And then I bought the coffee shops and started doing it. I was like, oh, I have no clue what I'm doing. There is so much more. And so now I know enough to know that I know like 10% of what is out there, if that. But most people, especially on the internet, think they know about 90% of coffee knowledge. And those people usually know about 2%. And those are the ones who go to mainstream coffee shops and say it's the best coffee in the world. So no offense to anybody out there. I don't want to get canceled, whichever camera I'm looking at. Sorry.
And we have talked to multiple coffee house owners, distributors. So we're equal opportunity coffee drinkers in this town.
I tell people all the time, like, coffee is a preferred taste, right? And so that means that your taste buds and my taste buds may not match, even if we both have equal quality of taste buds or equal quality of knowledge of the coffee world. And so there are different coffee shops, especially even within this town, that do coffee differently, which is great. I love that we have so many options. My biggest thing is always, if you're going to choose coffee, just choose somebody local.
Yes.
That's my biggest thing. There's plenty of variety of local providers, whether it's convenience, whether it's like super high quality, whether it's more, you want more of your everyday or your cheap, I don't want to say cheap, that doesn't sound good, but the lower cost coffee. There's an option out there for all those different styles that is a local provider.
Why the name Mission House? Tell the people, and especially now that we know there are listeners outside of the community who may not know about Mission House Coffee, tell the people why Mission House.
So Mission House was named what it is for a very particular reason. Couple reasons. First, nobody else used it. So it wasn't trademarked, and so it was fair game.
That's very important.
That was very important. There was one other Mission House coffee that existed in like Canada or something, but it had already fallen off and all that, so it was already done. And there's a Mission Coffee House out there, which we receive applications for. I think it's in like Minnesota or something. I don't know, different state completely.
Can they work remotely?
next time somebody applies for that location,
Right.
I will let them know, sure, yeah, it's a remote position.
Right.
And,
Okay.
but
So you picked the name because no one else had
nobody
it.
else had it.
I love that.
Yeah.
So to future entrepreneurs, that's really important.
Honestly, Google your name first before
buy
you
your
stake
domain.
anything on it. Google your name, get the domain, start using it, because then you're protected under the use of fair trade. So you don't even have to pay for the trademark. Just use it, and that'll show that it's yours.
Finders keepers.
Finders keepers. That's the way it goes. Get that domain done. So yes, future entrepreneurs do that first. But more importantly, was the serious nature of the name. Mission House Coffee. The mission is the first thing. Like, we want to show love, care, and acceptance to every person we come in contact with. That is our goal. And if we aren't doing that, that is our mission. If we aren't doing that, nothing else matters. I don't care what the business is. It cannot succeed without that mission being in place. House was what you kind of describing, the vibe, the feel. We want you to feel like you're at home there. I love that our baristas are fantastic people, and they have nicknamed Mission House for them Mission Home. And you will see more baristas come in off shift and just sit and hang out and talk to people and just love being there.
That's awesome.
And that warms my heart every time I walk in and I just see, 4 people who aren't working at the time sitting there, because it just shows that there is a good environment that they have created. And then coffee is, honestly, it's last on purpose, because we love serving a quality product. We are going to focus on it. We're going to do our best at it, but it's the least important thing about what we do.
It's your hook.
Yeah.
People
That's what
come
brings
for the coffee.
They're going to come for the coffee. They're going to find the home, and they're going to feel the mission. But the coffee, honestly, you drop coffee and you make it Mission House cars, Mission House venues. I don't care. Make it anything you want. That is just the avenue by which we reach people.
So you heard it here, folks. Tommy Clark is thinking about expanding
to cars.
the Mission House brand.
Every one of my baristas or anybody who works with me just went, oh no, not again.
Yeah. So many
not
ventures.
another one of his crazy
Someone
ideas.
stop him.
Yes. So how do you have a coffee shop that leads with love, care, and acceptance? What does that look like?
So, top-down approach. For me, it is, how can I make sure that our managers feel love, care, and accepted? How can we make sure that they know that that is the case? How can our employees feel love, care, and accepted? How can they know that this is a place they can feel great to work at? And even in our orientation or our interviews, when we get to the interview point, at the end of every interview, I say, just so you know, there are a lot of places out there that just pay great. You don't have to think about when you go home, and it lets you do everything else in life. So that's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with those jobs. Those are great, especially depending on where you are, stage of life. This isn't that job. This job, we want people to work here because you care, because you are motivated by love, care, and acceptance, and you want an avenue for people to feel that. And so that is, we start off with that approach, and that allows us to make sure that we're hiring great people. And we receive at least one application every single day. So if you're applying to Mission House, it even says it in the reply email. I'm sorry, we don't respond to all of them because we get so many. Like the last round, we interviewed 27 people and we hired 9. So it allows us to kind of make sure that the people who are working for us genuinely care about the mission. So starting off with great people is the first step. But then top-down approach of making sure every step along the way, like, we care about life circumstances. We want you to promote. It's a stepping stone job. Nobody's going to work in this forever. In fact, after 2 years, we kind of look at it and say, all right, are you moving up or are you moving on? Like, because there's an expiration date to a retail job like this.
And that's powerful that you acknowledge that, and you're developing
young professionals.
Young professionals are good people.
How can we make sure they're better off having worked for us when they leave us than what they were coming in?
That's awesome.
Develop the skills, and I love recommending people for next jobs. I love recommending people when they currently work for me for another job. Because again, I want to see them, if they're moving into their career field, fantastic. Get out of here.
That's so go-giving.
And that's really, it's the mentality we want to have. And I want my managers to have it. I want our baristas to have it. And I tell them all the time, like, I'm not the one interacting with the customers every single day. I'm going to interact with a few. You guys at the front lines of this shop are going to be interacting with people a lot more than I do. So if you don't feel this and you don't show this, the mission is lost.
Do you think you are equipping missionaries?
In some regards, we're doing that very literally. We actually have several of our baristas we have several that are going out overseas and then come back and we get to hear really cool stories. Yes, because I believe, when you look at life in general, and again, the name mission is on purpose, right? Everything we do should have a mission and purpose behind it. That could be, when you think missionary, first thing is overseas, in a third world country living in dirt. But there are missionaries in our community right here. There are people right around us that need the love of Jesus and need just the light. And that's what we want to see happen. And so by doing things the way we do it, we allow that to occur. It's up to the individual whether or not they take that and make it this is my goal. This is what I'm really seeking for. This is what I'm doing versus this is a byproduct of who I am or what happens. So that intentionality shift. But I love pointing out stories all the time of people who have walked in the store and left completely differently. And the impact that baristas have on that. And to managers, the impact that we've had on the people who work for us, because they are, the people who come in here are such great people, but everybody is in need of development and growing and learning. And so when we see that happen, when we see that love, care, and acceptance be pushed into them and that care be really just something that we focus on every day. And we care about your mental health. We actually partner with 518 for counseling services, right? We push to all our staff. I pay for their first session. I said, anybody who wants to go just talk to somebody, we will pay for that because we know how important that is. And so when they feel that, it makes a difference. And that equips them to be better off to then do that for others as well.
Where did the desire to own a business come from?
So I've always kind of been an entrepreneur. I got asked not too long ago, what was your first entrepreneurial thing that you did that you can remember? And I lived at the top of a hill growing up, and it has a stop sign at it. And every winter it would snow, and people would stop at that stop sign and get stuck. And so I would sit on the front porch with my shovel, and this is in Northern Virginia, so, people got some money up there. I'd sit on the porch with my shovel, and I would go out, and I'd dig them out, and I'd say, here, I got you. And then, I wouldn't charge anything for it, of course, but they'd always, oh, here's a 10, here's a 20. Thanks so much for helping me. Absolutely. They'd drive away.
Is hilarious. So you were capitalizing on someone else's misfortune.
Well, yes, and in some ways maybe creating it, because once they left, I would go put the snow back.
Is that true?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. God put it there. It's not up to me to move it. So I put the snow back. The next car gets stuck. I move the snow out again, and then they leave and I put the snow back. So,
That is very entrepreneurial.
So that was kind of my, And I was a youth pastor for a while.
And then you took an ethics course.
And then, okay. At the same time, I would also take my shovel and go down the entire block and shovel out a path down the entire block of the sidewalk. Anybody who I knew had an elderly household, I would go and I would shovel their entire front entranceway as well. And I wouldn't even knock on the door. I wouldn't even let them know I do it. I just, move on.
It was your mission.
So I had my entrepreneurial side with also the genuine care for people and love and just wanting to serve. But even when I was the youth pastor, man, I just remember thinking, I miss retail. Because I managed a couple of stores and things like that. And I was like, man, I miss retail. And nobody says that. I know I'm messed up here. Because nobody misses retail. You put up with it.
Well, there's a newness to it.
Yeah. Well, and there's the excitement of it. You never know. And I love just interacting with people and saying, how can I serve you? And how can I, do that in a very intentional way? I've got these resources, these products, that I want to provide you with. And so how can I help you achieve that? I think it's really the heart of it. So I don't know. It's just owning a store and wanting that is just that desire to serve people in that way, but also on the flip side, again, with the employees, being part of so many businesses where you got treated or things were done in a way that you're like, man, there's a better way. You're just missing something in it and feeling powerless to do anything about it. The last time I was a server, before I bought Mission House, I went in with a new frame of mind, and I was like, every table is going to be my ministry. Every table is going to be I'm just going to care and love on them. And every employee around me, every coworker is going to be somebody that I want to help brighten their day, because I know how dark a world it is when you're serving tables and waiting tables. I did it in college as well. And I got caught up in the drama. I got caught up in the every table, whether they tip well or not affects your mood, and that affects your next table, and that affects this. And then you're complaining to everybody. So then gossip starts to spread. It's it
It's
can
a
become a
cycle.
really bad place really quickly. And so I went in this last time, I was like, I want to do this differently. I don't have the power to change an entire culture of a restaurant from a management perspective. I do have the power to change the perspective of the people around me that I'm working with to say, I'm going to do it this way. I think it works better.
Mhm.
And serving is weird because you can immediately see the result of what you do. Not every industry is like that. Not every business is like that. A lot of times it takes a long time to see the result, but you get tipped.
Pretty immediate feedback.
You get immediate feedback, and it's very obvious feedback. And you either get complained about to a manager, or somebody compliments you to a manager or something like that. It's you get that immediate feedback. And there were two things about that. There's one, it shows when you're getting really good tips and somebody else isn't. You say that's because you just didn't have a great attitude about it. People see that. Like, people aren't dumb; they see that. But on the other hand, you look at it and say, sometimes people are going to walk in and it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter your performance. And that's true in life because people are going through their own stuff, and it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, and all that, because a lot of times we think it's all about me. And so I think, my attitude, I should have the ability to change somebody else completely. It's just not the case. Everybody's going through their own stuff.
Them.
You can influence it. And we tell our baristas, you're going to have you will have an impact on everybody you come in contact with. It'll be negative, neutral, or positive. We're going to do our best to make it positive. Sometimes it's neutral. Sometimes it doesn't. Do our best not to make it negative as well, right? We don't want to make their day worse, but man, sometimes people just, they come in with the right, and you can't let that change you. And that's the hard part. Sometimes you just got to brush it off and say, yeah, they must have been having a bad day. And you just move on to the next table and you give them the light that you have. So that's kind of the culture I wanted to set. And I was tired of doing everything I could, but knowing there was a better way company-wide. And so that's what I wanted to do. And owning a business gives you that ability. It's up to you. Positive or negative, Is this the best way to do a business? Probably not. I know I'm missing the mark in some areas. I'm missing the mark more on the business side, though, than I am on the personal side. And if I'm going to miss it somewhere, I'd rather miss it on the business side.
Yeah.
Wow.
That tracks with the name of your coffee shop.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Coffee comes last.
Coffee comes last. The business side comes last.
And I do think it's powerful when you think about your background in ministry.
Yeah.
And you're a business owner, that oftentimes people will come into a coffee shop. New people will come into a coffee shop when new people don't always come into churches.
Yeah.
Or they don't so freely come into churches.
Yeah.
And how important it is to feel like Jesus, how important it is to minister to people Monday through Saturday.
Yep.
As well as on Sundays.
Yeah.
But the power that a spiritual model or a shepherding model can have on people in the community who may not ever come to church.
Right. I was a couple of years ago, before we opened Cornerstone, before we opened University of Lynchburg. I'm still a pastor, pastor at Passion Community Church, and I was actually looking at going into full-time ministry there. My plan was actually to sell the downtown location, keep them all because it was a little bit easier to operate at that point, and then go into full-time ministry. And we were pretty close to making that happen, pulling the trigger on that. And it was the week before Easter. My senior pastor went on vacation, and that's when I got the call about University of Lynchburg. They said, hey, we'd love you to bid on this location. I said, I've always wanted to operate that because that's where I went to school. That was my first coffee shop job, was at that location. And I was like, I'd love to operate that spot. And then the Cornerstone, we had been negotiating for a while. They were going to go with somebody else, and that was fine. I'd already kind of come to terms with it. And they came back and said, hey, same week. Hey, the other people we're not feeling too good with, it's not lining up. So we'd actually love for you to, if you're still interested, we'd love to work out a deal to get you in the space.
Talk about a sign.
Oh, man. I was well, here's the problem. Temptation and opportunity look exactly the same sometimes. And that's where the Spirit comes into play, right?
Say that again for the people, because that is, I need to hear that again.
Temptation and opportunity can look exactly the same. And it is up to us to use the Spirit to decipher the difference. And that's where your relationship with God comes into play. Because it's not always cut and dry. This is bad. This is good. Sometimes both are good. Sometimes the good, both are bad. And you need to look at it and say, where is God calling me in this season at this moment to walk into. And that can only happen if you are close to God in that moment, which means you don't know when that moment's going to happen. That means you have to be prepared for that moment to happen at any time. Because I didn't expect it at that moment. I thought I was set. Is God really going to tell me don't go into full-time ministry? That's not what you would expect, but that was the opportunity or temptation in front of me. And so I had to quickly decipher, because they're waiting on yeses or no's at this point.
And are these your ministries in this season?
Is this where I'm supposed to go? Is this simply temptation where it's being thrown in front of me saying, look what you're going to have to say no to choose me, right? And I need you to say no to every opportunity that looks good to choose me and to go into full-time ministry. Or is it God saying, that's not the move I want for you? I want you to lean into what I've given you through this business aspect and let the church, continue your work at the church, but let this be your full-time thing. Both of those sound right. And so I went to mentors. I went to pastors. I went to pastors outside of my church. So there's no, anybody who's close in is going to have an internal bias somewhere. And there are two pieces of advice that I really got from mentors and pastors was, you have what other pastors wish they had, which is a way to reach people outside of church.
Yes.
Huge.
Because the people you're reaching are the very people we want to reach, but we can't get to because they will never come to us. And they're coming to you. They're coming to where you are. They're coming to where your impact is. And to give that up is a very difficult thing. The other piece of advice I got was, what do you think Lynchburg needs more of? Pastors or business owners working for Christ? And man, there's 400 churches in Lynchburg. There's a whole university, biggest Christian university in the world right there, training pastors day in and day out. Do we need another one of those? Or do we need people engaged in everyday life that are doing this the right way? With God at the forefront. And I just, when those two things were said, I really just, it's like, okay, I think that's where I need to go. But I wanted that final confirmation. So my senior pastor came back. We sat down, we had lunch, and I had said in my head, I was like, I want two things. I want him to feel some sort of uncertainty about me going into full-time ministry without knowing what's going on, because he had no clue. He was on vacation, and it was Easter, so I wasn't going to bother him, over Easter. So this was after Easter, and I was like, I want him to have some sort of internal uncertainty about me doing this. The Spirit is what I wanted to push him to say, something's not right. And I was like, the second thing I want his blessing. And I said out loud, I said, I don't need it, but that's what I want. And so we had lunch, and I told him what was going on, told him about all the opportunity. And I was just like, what do you think? And keep in mind, this is the one who significantly, is impacted either way by my decision. And he said, you know what? My gut is telling me that Mission House is what you need to lean into. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what I needed. I needed that. And at the end of the conversation, he said, well, you know what? I give you my blessing.
Wow.
I hadn't said anything to him about it. So I just started laughing. And I think he thought I was laughing because, I don't need your blessing. And so he was like, well, not that you need it, which just made me laugh more because that's the other words that I said. I don't need it. And I was like, no, you don't understand. God answered every bit of what I wanted to the T.
In this conversation.
And that gave me the peace to move forward with pushing into Cornerstone and University of Lynchburg, which ended up saving us because downtown closed over the summer. So it really kind of turned a corner of who we were and established the business to be what it is now. So I don't know, temptation, opportunity, man, it's so hard to distinguish, but when you are close with God, when you are close with people who you trust in your life, who have godly wisdom, and you lean into that humility of, I just don't know. And that's okay, because we're never going to know everything. So it all that has to connect to really work through the right way.
Life is messy, and sometimes people just need someone safe to talk to. We're here to listen because everyone's story should be heard. 518 Counseling exists to empower children, adults, and families to overcome past experiences and create a path to being stronger both mentally and spiritually. Family is a nuanced concept. 518's family care team brings simple solutions to complex situations through professional intervention, interpersonal support, and parenting education. We strive for an outcome of mending families and keeping children safe. 518's Connect team equips and empowers volunteers with the training and support to serve confidently by matching their passions with opportunities. Our outreach is targeted to build partnerships with individuals, churches, agencies, and businesses. At Hat Creek Camp, we provide exceptional camp experiences with careful attention to the needs of youth, encouraging campers to grow through trust-based challenges and successes. It's a place to build relationships, inspire change, and transform lives.
I'm going off script here.
Okay. Oh, we've been on script?
Well, kind of.
Generally.
Okay. All right. All right.
You see your lines right here that you're supposed to read
Yeah,
off?
Yes,
the
the
camera doesn't see it. Yeah, I've got a whole sheet right.
Yeah.
Everything I just said was just reading off a teleprompter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was an incident that happened at one of your locations fairly recently.
Yeah.
That was public.
Yes.
Really public.
Yeah.
I would like for you to talk through however much of that you feel comfortable, while also maintaining dignity of all who are
Yes.
involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've known you for years, I
Yeah.
would say, kind of as an associate or somebody in the periphery of my social circle.
Right.
But I feel like
Oh, she tried really hard not to say friend there.
She does
really-
not consider you a friend.
I don't know if we know each other that well.
I don't know
you know
how,
what I mean?
Yeah. I feel you. Yep. Yep.
But I feel like the community got to know you, or maybe the community would even consider you a friend because you so publicly acknowledged and helped with the healing. So
Yeah.
can you talk about that incident and how you made the decision to very publicly acknowledge something the way that you did?
Yeah, absolutely. So the incident itself, I know you're referring to, was a gentleman walking into our Cornerstone location. Threw a package in the air and said, "This is a bomb." He walked up to the counter, waving his hands as if they were finger guns, and walked up to the counter and said, "This is a robbery." Stood at the counter, smiled for a little bit, eventually went back to the back wall, and started really berating somebody who was just sitting there. Our employees did a fantastic job. One was in the back. They weren't up front the entire time. The other employees said, "Stay back there." They called me. Since they didn't know what was going on. At the same time, the other employee went and pressed our emergency button to get police there. It also sounds an alarm to let them know, "Hey, we're on to you. Somebody's coming." And so they did a fantastic job handling that. There was also a gentleman that was sitting close to where the encounter was happening in the back of the room there, who stepped up and got in the guy's face and just said, "Hey, you need to get out of here." So the combination of all that kind of happening had that guy, the guy leave, and everybody else was able to run out the other door. Thankfully, we have two doors. Police were there within less than 5 minutes. They were really fast to respond.
And no one was physically hurt.
Nobody was physically hurt. The package he threw in the air did hit somebody, but they were not injured. They didn't seek medical attention or anything like that. And so nobody was hurt. It was the best of a worst case scenario. The package ended up just having been, some lady's package off their doorstep that he had stolen earlier. So it wasn't, we waited for hours for the bomb squad and, to really figure everything out. The police did a great job of handling it. So after that incident, and even that night, trying to process the feelings involved. One, I wasn't there right at that moment. The police got there in 5 minutes. I got there in 7. I might have been going a little faster than you should on the road. But I was like, "Hey, we're all going to the same place. So if police are going to stop me, then just stop me there, will you?"
Yeah.
But as I'm driving there, not knowing what's happening, not knowing if people are getting hurt, like the one who called me just said, "Hey, there's something happening." I said, "Do you need police?" I said, "Yes."
Wow.
"Okay, call them." A security company called me and said, "Yes, send the police." And so it all happened so fast, and I had no information. And it was just that genuine concern of, this can happen anywhere, but you never expect it to happen where you are. And I'm glad we do the training to just kind of say, "Hey, here's what you do." And I'm glad it was in the back of their minds to do the right thing. But we got there, everything's settled, and we're sitting there that night, and I'm just thinking through, like, the people who were there didn't know what was going on either. And that was a terrifying experience. Because you see it happen on the news, the reality of what it could be. And the reality is it could have been so much worse. And at the same time, you go, there's an individual there who is clearly broken. For one reason or another. I don't know what's going on in their life. I don't know what's happening internally, mentally, whatever. But they're broken. And so after checking on the employees, we obviously made sure they were okay, gave them time off if they wanted it, also allowed them to return back to work. If they wanted, just completely let them rule how they wanted to go from there. Because sometimes it's good just to get back into it so it doesn't, I used to ride horses, you fall off a horse, you get back up because you don't want to be scared of it for the rest of your life. But also allowing for whatever healing. We also, anybody who was there, we tried to put out publicly that we will pay for whatever counseling you need. Again, we partner with 518, and we said that 518, I reached out to them and you guys, and they said, absolutely, we will 100% cover anybody who was involved in that incident. They won't have to pay for a thing. And I was like, that's great. Cause I was going to pay for it, but this is even better. So again, there's this partnerships being established helped. And just saying, we want to provide that for anybody who is involved. But also let's recognize that this is why we're here. This is why we are here in this community, because there are broken, hurting people in this world, and we want to be able to be a light. And so even in the midst of somebody causing this, we want the person who caused this to be able to be healed as well. We want them to feel loved, cared, and accepted, because something happened along the way where that didn't happen. And maybe we can be on the reactionary side, but hopefully we can be more on the preventative side for somebody else in the future. And so it's been an interesting journey. It's still ongoing. Next week, I've got a court case for it. And so it's just kind of, it continues on, but we wanted the response not to be out of anger. Although it's easily justifiable to say somebody came in and caused that level of chaos, that level of trauma for people. And again, I wasn't even in the room and I still feel it. I can't imagine what people who went through that, they're going through, and whatever thoughts and images may still pop up. But within that, we also just know we've all been impacted by trauma in different ways, and we've all experienced things that'll cause us to do different things. And so for this gentleman, I genuinely want him to receive whatever help is necessary to allow healing to occur.
So you're probably watching me try not to cry as you're telling the story. But just hearing you tell the story, I can remember reading your public statement and weeping because you can say Mission House, but you lived it that night.
Yeah.
And you're living it now. And there's a reason we have tissues in here. But that's your sanctuary.
Yeah.
And that was the sanctuary for your employees and the community. And I knew you before that, but I felt like I knew you on a different level. And I wasn't even in the room, but how you responded to the community, and you shepherded the community through how to deal with someone who is broken. And that was beautiful.
I appreciate that. And it's important for me in every instance that we don't just talk. Because there have been too many business owners, political leaders, religious leaders who have spoken really well. And then you look at the life and it just doesn't match. You look at the reactions and it just doesn't match. And what bothers servers more than people who go to church on Sunday, go to brunch afterwards, and then tip nothing,
right?
Or are super rude to them, and you just go, "Yeah, this is the example that is why I don't follow this." And so for us, it's just, for me, if I'm not going to live in a way that exemplifies the grace that I've been shown, then I shouldn't be speaking about it either. And I love that we have a sanctuary and a mission home for our baristas, and hopefully for anybody else who walks through the door. And I hope they feel that and they see that. And you know what? I don't even mind our bad reviews online. Most of them are like, I hate to leave a 3-star, 1-star review because the people were so great, but whatever problem they encountered, because we're not perfect people. We're going to screw it up all the time, right? I screw up every day. But when we can be just genuine people, it makes a world of difference. And I think that's the impact we want to have.
So while I'm over here almost weeping, but I'm going to get it back together.
Yeah. Yep.
Can you talk about the roundup feature and the board? Because if I'm going to cry another time through this episode, it will be about what's written on the board.
Just get all the crying out.
The crying out.
The pay forward board.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so yes, the two of the biggest ways we have our core values as a company. We focus on 4 greats: great product, great service, great place to work, great for the community. I always tell people when we go through the descriptions of those, I did not write the great place to work part. I let the baristas write that part. But great for the community. For each one of those, we have standards that we want to hold and accountability for how we meet those standards. If anybody's ever interested, I'll show you our orientation packet. I love telling people about why we do what we do. But the 2 greatest examples for making sure that we are actually doing this thing for real, as far as the mission goes, is the Roundup program, which is every time that you have a transaction at Mission House, you have the ability and you will be asked if you would like to round up for a nonprofit of the month, or some variation of that question. And it's just pennies on the dollar. Our baristas love it because they get to do math every time.
And that's not easy.
It's not
for
easy,
you
right?
As a
No.
business owner, that's not easy. Would you like to pay more for this product?
Right. Exactly. Well, and part of it is when we first started doing it. So October of 2018 is when we first started. It's halfway through the month, and we started doing it that way because I was like, look, we always said we're going to give a portion of our profits to nonprofits, and I said, but I know it takes, the average is 3 to 4 years for coffee shops, 5 years to become profitable as a business. And I didn't want to wait that long because what's worse than somebody saying they're going to do a good thing and then not like, oh, this is what we're all about in 5 years. And so I was like, okay, how can we start doing this right away? And it was actually a large corporate company that was doing Roundup for the hurricanes that had come through at that time in North Carolina. And I said, wait a second, we can do that. Like that actually doesn't cost us anything because it's the customers paying for it. And it's just giving them the opportunity and then we'll facilitate. And so that was the start of it. And then over time, I grew to really love doing it that model because it took us out of the picture. It's not Mission House is paying for this. It's not one company writing a check. It's not us saying, oh, look how good we are. It's the community. We don't claim a penny of that. We've given other ways and we're trying to be generous in other ways, but through the Roundup program, that is 100% the community supporting the community. And that's what we want to see is that promotion because that is ongoing. That outlasts Mission House. That isn't dependent on us as an organization to continue. And we've seen a lot of other shops pick that up as well.
It is incredibly mind-blowing to know how that adds up. Because I've seen it. I've seen a check and I've seen the benefits. And, for 1 month of people walking into a coffee shop and voluntarily rounding up pennies on the dollar, teenagers were able to do something for an entire year for the nonprofit that I was leading at the time. So I was blown away at how generous people are.
When you give the right opportunity, it's a lot easier to say yes. And we try to make it easy, right? And we don't want it to be pressure. We don't, especially people who are in there every day, we're at the mall. We have mall employees coming in, 3 times a day.
Love that.
Speaking of over-caffeinating.
No, they need it.
Yeah, but God bless them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we always want to present the opportunity though. And regardless of how many times you're in there, you're going to get asked the question every single time. And that's the way we've trained it. And so we always want the opportunity to be there. We want it to be easy to say yes. And sometimes we're kind of hesitant, right? Your total's 902. Boy, and we think about it, it's like 98 cents. Man, that's a big roundup. And we're like, okay, it's also just 98 cents. Right. But we still ask the question. And sure enough, there's a lot of times you're like, yeah, absolutely, round it up. And we have raised, I don't know the total number off the top of my head. We just finished a month, so but I'm pretty positive we're just over $70,000 since October of 2018.
I believe it.
And so it is, that's the money that's been added up. And again, not Mission House, the community has raised over $70,000 for our nonprofits in the community doing great work.
Wow.
You've given them the opportunity to bless organizations in the community.
Yeah.
You're just the awareness. You're the middleman.
We spread the message. And I saw a really cool, one of the best stories we had come out of that. We did a group called Wheels on the James. They provided adaptive trikes for kids with disabilities. And we got to see a really cool full circle moment somebody was doing a news article on me at the time. And so we told them about the Roundup program, and they saw it. And they said, well, actually, I have a brother who's adopted who has a physical disability. And I wonder if this organization, so they applied through the organization, got approved for an adaptive trach. The amount of money that we raised that month was just enough to cover one adaptive trach, which went to the brother of the one who's doing it. So they found out about the organization, which awareness is a big part of what we like to do, push, let people know about it. But then they also were able to be recipients of that. And I talked to the mom later, and we were given permission to share this. The mom said, because of his past and the type of trauma he went through before we adopted him, the mom and him have had a very difficult time with butting heads, and for him trusting her and really establishing that bond. When he got the bike, he was looking at her with the biggest smile she's ever seen.
Oh.
And just being able to feel like, to help that family connect over something that was like, this is specially for him in a circumstance where most other needs can't be met, or it would have to be some sort of, great lengths. This was just a moment for him. And she was able to be the one to provide that, to make it happen. And we just got to be a part of it. We just got to be the middleman, orchestrating, not even orchestrating the pieces. The pieces happened on their own. God orchestrated all that. We just got to play a part. And so it was really cool. Things like that. That's what we love seeing. But we raise right now, it's usually between, $700-800 and $1,000 a month. And so if you go in right now, it's actually 518 this month is our nonprofit of the month. So we always encourage you to go in. We always encourage you to round up, and you're supporting very real change to very real people in your community. And rest assured, Mission House does not see a penny of it. Never will, never want to. We want to see it go to the people who need it the most. So, and then our Pay It Forward board. You mentioned that as well. As I love our Pay It Forward board. We again allow the opportunity, if you would like to pay for somebody else's food or drink in the future, you can buy a voucher that is good for a food or drink and put it on the board. And you write whatever reason you want on that, who it's for. And it can be for, a mom who's having a difficult day, or, a police officer, or school teacher. But some of them get really descriptive. Some of them are, for somebody battling depression right now, for somebody who's just experienced a loss, for somebody who is raised in the foster care system and doesn't feel seen. And for me, it's really cool to read those tags and say, these people are putting this on here for a reason. It's because they have been impacted by whatever this is, and they want to help break that cycle and allow other people going through it to know they're not alone. And so when we see those tags, it's a microcosm of what Lynchburg is going through. And it allows us to say, this is the hurt we see. This is the hurt we know exists. But also here's the people willing to jump in and be a part of change and be a part of helping people walk through that in a small way, and it's cool. You'll never know who wrote the tag.
When I read them, when I get close enough to allow myself to read them, because they usually make me tear up because they're beautiful.
Yeah.
It's almost like a prayer list for the person who wrote them.
Yeah.
And the people who are going to receive them, because they are incredibly vulnerable. Sometimes they're funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
For the person who forgot their wallet. Or for the, for the end of the month, and you get paid once a month.
Right.
So sometimes they're funny.
Yes.
But other times they are incredibly vulnerable and raw.
Yep. And it's so cool. And we're actually, because of that, we're actually currently working on a new way to do the tags where you can simply just redeem the bottom of a voucher so you can keep the meaning of it. But also if you feel, if you're going through something that maybe you don't want to publicly acknowledge to a barista that you don't know, you'll be able to just hand them the bottom of the voucher. So just modifications like that, as we've seen over time,
That's very dignified.
Just make it a little easier for people to redeem. Because there's so many times, I can't tell you how many times people look at a tag, go, "Oh, that applies to me. I'll save it for somebody else."
Right.
Because they feel that too. They want to be a part of that giving as well, and their giving is not receiving.
So there's a community Facebook group out there that does a lot of drama and gossip, but they also do a lot of good. And I would say, once a week or once every couple weeks, someone will post, "Man, I wish a local coffee shop would do this." And everyone answers, Mission House does that. So
Right.
someone will be in another locality
Yeah.
around the country and they'll take a picture of a pay it forward board.
I love it.
And people are always answering, go to Mission House
They do
locations
that,
at
yeah.
these places. They do it.
Yep. And we didn't create this idea, right?
Mhm.
It actually came from one of our old managers, was traveling, I think in Washington or something, and saw the board, and we were opening our downtown location at that point, and we knew we would have a higher population who would walk in the door looking for something for free,
Mhm.
and it's not a good business model to give away everything for free.
Right.
But again, wanting to show love, care, and acceptance, we were just battling with how do we do this? How do we respect people with dignity who are going through a hard time and provide them with something, but not run us dry as well? And that was the answer. That picture was, she sent me that and said, hey, I think this is really cool. We should do this. I was like, that's our answer. We let the community pay for, the other community members' drinks. And that way, when somebody comes in, they will be able to receive something for free, but it won't just be on our backs to provide it. And I will say, even with those vouchers, there are some that sit there for a while. There are some that, that it's a $5 drink voucher, but they only redeem it for $2 or something. Just so everybody knows what happens on the back end. It goes on to kind of a gift card system. Any remaining balance from anything that is the voucher was worth more than what they redeemed is left up to the baristas to then still give away, at their discretion. If they feel like somebody just needs a free drink or, just could use a discount or something like that, they can use that at their discretion, the excess funds. So they're always used for the heart in which it was given, and to make sure that it maintains there. So it's not like they only redeemed for $2.50. I guess Mission House just made $2.50 off somebody's good heart. We don't do that. Everything we do goes to the heart
That's
of what it
very
does.
intentional. I wouldn't even think about
I wouldn't
that.
have thought that.
Yeah, we like to make sure that we are very transparent with everything. So.
Should we ask him about Mended Futures?
I think so.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I guess that would be good.
I guess.
Okay.
So the name of this podcast is Mended Futures.
I love it.
When you hear that phrase, does that mean anything to you?
When I see the name Mended Futures, I look at it and go, obviously, for something to be mended, it first needs to be broken. There needs to be something that's not correct about it or not right or has been disrupted. And so when I look at that and say Mended Futures, I think, man, it's saying there's something where you are right now that can be transformed into something greater, or something whole or something complete. And just the futures. I mean, there are so many people who just don't even envision a future because they're so broken where they are right now. And to say there's a possibility for the amended future, for a better future, for a whole future. Hope. Yes, absolutely. That's what my brain immediately goes to, is saying there is hope.
You have described how you are mending futures in this community through your work.
Yeah.
Are you a product of a mended future?
So I think we could all answer yes or no to that. And so I'll be careful with my words here, because there are things in my life where I'd say, man, that was hard. And then I look at it by comparison, which is always a trap, by the way.
Right.
Comparison is always a trap. But look at it to what other people have gone through or current circumstances and say, I've gone through nothing. I've been overseas. Last year I was in Peru, and you look at where you are and the people around you and you go, really? This is what I complain about? Where am I right now? There's very little I could complain about and say, man, I have the worst of whatever. However, to say that I'm not a product of a mended future would be to say that I have always been whole, complete, or never broken. And that is also not true. I've experienced brokenness. I've experienced loneliness. I've experienced feeling like you don't quite measure up or fit in. And so I would say I'm a product of hope given by God and supplied through people who have cared about me and loved me and want to see me succeed.
I love that.
I love how everyone answers it differently. So because you have a background in the ministry, Patrick Henry Family Services rebranded as 518 Family Services.
Yeah.
A very intentional rebrand to go away from a historical figure that was tied to proximity of land where the services used to happen, and now to a Bible verse. Can you talk about the meaning of Corinthians 5:18. Can you talk about what does reconciliation mean to you, both in life and with God? Do you have any reflections about the rebrand and that name?
No.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. It was nice to have you.
Thanks so much.
Great.
Your episode's
Sorry, I
under
had
an
to-
hour.
Yeah. Yeah, and cut.
1 hour 25 seconds. Just to get you. Yes. So when I heard about and really reflected on the change that was happening, I can't say how proud I was to see an organization in a culture that is pushing farther and farther away from religious ties or anything controversial to say, nope, this is where reconciliation comes from. We have to go back to the true source and do it intentionally and not try to hide it under the curtain of something else, so that if people say, Jesus, oh, look, there's 518. And if anybody doesn't like, there's like nothing to see here. We just provide services. No, to be blatantly open and transparent about what you do and why, I think was a critical move, a crucial move, and a smart move, and the right move. And I think people need to know where grace comes from, where reconciliation comes from, where hope comes from. And it's not from anything we can provide on our own. And too often we try to do the self-help method, or we try to say, this is the best that is available, when it's not. So I love that. I think it was a great move. Reconciliation to me is just saying, there's, again, that point of brokenness or separation from the truth, and the truth in who you are and who you were made to be. And the reconciliation being able to happen through God says the circumstances of sin will always exist. And that's not something that's going to change over time. It's going to get worse with time, but to be reconciled to each other through Christ means that there's the ability for us, and he's given all of us this ability to help mend that, to help bring it together, to help pull people back in from darkness or from dangerous waters into this life with God that is so much more worth living, and so much more, I don't know the right word for it, but just connected. And so seeing that verse and just reflecting on that verse specifically it's really cool. And it's actually come up in our church several times recently as well, as we're talking to even volunteers and saying that ministry of reconciliation, man, that happens both tangibly here as we are interacting with people who are going through really hard circumstances, and it happens from our Father, down to us to say he wants to pull us back in, and he wants us to see us connected. So when we do experience those things in life, we are on solid ground. Last October, not this just past one, the year before that, I went through my own mental breakdown of there's so much going on, so many things not going right, that I just couldn't handle it anymore. I took a month off of pastoring for my church, which my senior pastor asked me. He did not require it, but heavily encouraged. And man, it was so good because I needed that to say all these circumstances, all the stuff that we're going through doesn't matter in light of Christ. You cannot do it without him. You cannot do it well without him. You cannot do it right without him. You can do it without him, but it's going to kind of go like that. Or you can be connected to him and say, you know what? Yep, hard stuff happens, but I'm reconciled with him, which means I know that I'm in a firm place. I know I'm in a safe place. So I think we need to provide that tangibly. And I think that's the work that 518 really does, is they provide that tangible reconciliation, so that people going through those hard circumstances have the best opportunity possible to experience a full reconciliation with Christ by being pulled out of the current circumstance and take the circumstance away as best we can from being the distracting figure and leading people towards who can really fix that. It doesn't change, it doesn't change the circumstance completely. It's just a helping hand. It's a stepping stone. It's a way to just lift it out in the moment, to help give some relief, some respite from the circumstance. So that's really what I love seeing, and then pulling them into a different path, right? Because then it's okay, I can handle this, and I can get through this, and I can do this, and maybe and I've seen very real tangible circumstances completely change because of the work that's being done. So it's two sides, right? Tangibly, we provide that resource, we give generously, and I think that's key for anybody listening is that give generously. And everybody gets kind of touchy about that. So on behalf of 518, I'll say give generously, because that allows things to change. And I think when we give, we can do it out of our excess and not feel the pain of sacrifice necessarily, although that's not a bad thing. I think when we look at that and we see the result, we see it's worth it because everything you're paying for is worth it. This cup of coffee, you paid for it, right? So for you, it was worth that payment to receive what you got. And when we give generously to organizations that are making change in people's life, I think that's far more worth it than we realize. And that's why these stories are also important to say this is really where life change can happen. And to see that tangible example is to say, okay, now I know I can give generously, but also with your time, with your energy, with your, any other resource you have, and just saying, I want to be part of something bigger than where I'm living right now. Super important. So.
And your mission house philosophy of rounding up and paying it forward is a really low barrier entry to opportunities.
Absolutely.
And you're providing awareness and opportunities. And I want to say one more thing, and this can be included or not included. I think it's incredibly powerful that you, as a Christian leader in the community, are acknowledging and co-signing the importance of mental health. And I think that it's kind of unusual. And we've talked about this before. 518 going to an overtly, explicitly Christian rebrand is also in a lot of ways leading the movement in encouraging mental health services and going farther upstream. And sometimes it's either or, and you're seeing Christians saying we need both and I do think that's incredibly powerful that you're offering counseling to your employees and you're acknowledging that this is a hard world.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason God designed us to be in community. I mean, if we could do it on our own, we wouldn't need each other and we'd just be fine. But you know what? When somebody goes to the doctor because they're sick, you don't look at them and say, you're not Christian enough because you didn't pray it away.
Right.
Why is the brain any different? It's also a functioning thing that sometimes needs healing. And I've been to counseling and it's really helped just to talk to somebody. I mean, I can't tell you how many people through being a pastor that you mentor and disciple. Do you know how much advice I give? Very little. You know why? Because I just ask questions. Most people are able to, you just need somebody outside of you to say, let me help you process the information you know and get to the truth of what you know without the distraction of all the excess. Because all I'm going to do as a pastor, for the most part, is point out your excess stuff that you're throwing at it. And you're going to say, situation, therefore, no, truth, therefore. And that's what it helps. And so,
but helpers need helpers. And I love that you're modeling that.
Absolutely.
That's powerful.
Yeah, I need it. I need people in my life who can help set me straight. I need people in my life who can help take away that excess for me as well, and just boil it down to truth. And sometimes I get to do that on my own, right? Sometimes we can get there. But I can tell you from personal experience, every time I've tried to do it on my own, it's taken much longer and it's much more difficult than if I have somebody else who can help me walk through that and help point those things out from a nonpartisan perspective of, look, I'm just here for you.
Right.
And I really appreciate that. So.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you for everything you do for the community. Your joy and your passion is tangible. Yes. So we've so enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you for listening to the Mended Futures Podcast, hosted by Allison Jordan and Taylor Melvin, produced by Liam Chafin, Sue England, Allison Jordan, Robert Day, Sully Jugar, and Taylor Melvin. You can find us on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to see more.